Hey Merfolk fans, I'm Joe. Thanks very much for joining me today. If you'd like to support my channel, please check out the link above to my Patreon page. I'll also put the link down below in the description. I'm back with round 4 of a Modern League. Opponent is going to be on the play. This 4-lander with 3 Mutavaults is definitely a mulligan. The opponent kept 7, I believe, and then this is a pretty nice keep for a mulligan. So, of all of these cards, which one do you guys put on the bottom? I'll let you think about it for a second. So for me, against an unknown opponent, I'm just going to bottom the Trickster, because our plan is pretty much, get some big unblockable creatures down, and it's nice having 2 Lords in the opening hand. Now, if I knew I was playing against some deck that had creatures that were really important to tap down, then I would have certainly kept the Trickster on a mulligan. But against an unknown opponent, I like having the beef with the double Lord of Atlantis. So Pendelhaven means immediately, whatever it is, Hardened Scales or Glistener Elf, that keeping the Trickster would have been a better play. So Biomancer's decent because with 1 land, we'll be able to get him down with Vial on 1. Okay, so Scale Up is trying to make him into a 6/4, so pretty easy choice. Gonna pitch a Lord, cast Force of Negation, and you can see they would have had the turn 2 kill here. This guy would have been 11 power attacking on turn 2. Opponent did mulligan to 5 here, but they were mulliganing to find that sort of powerful turn 2 or turn 3 win. Vial goes to 1, and we don't draw our second land, which is pretty bad for us. All we can do here is just throw creatures in front of this guy, and with Pendelhaven on the board, I have to say this is a pretty sensational mulligan to 5. The guy has 2 lands, an Infect creature, 2 pump spells, and includes a Pendelhaven, which just lets this Glistener Elf attack with impunity into my creatures. A second Glistener Elf. So let's just look at the cards that this guy had on a mulligan to 5. Pendelhaven, Breeding Pool, or sorry, that was a fetch land, 2 pump spells, and 2 creatures. Wow, I mean, I play Infect in Legacy. This is an amazing mulligan to 5. Okay, there's a second land. I'm going to start off with the Silvergill. I think I revealed Master of Waves just to potentially represent that I don't have another 2-drop to Vial in. Okay, so I'm gonna throw the Silvergill in front of this Glistener Elf, hoping that the opponent doesn't have the lethal pump spell because, they are on the mulligan to 5. I'll Vial in the Lord here, lets the Silvergill live. He's gonna eat one of the Glistener Elves. But of course the opponent drew an Inkmoth Nexus and a Glistener Elf. Oh man, so he, let's see. They have drawn 4 Infect creatures. Oh man, you guys see what's going on here. I don't need to keep saying it over and over again. Alright, so we tick AEther Vial up, draw a second Master of Waves, one of the worst cards in the matchup. Activate Inkmoth Nexus, plays a second Pendelhaven. And gets in, why not, second Pendelhaven. Means I cannot block well. All my creatures are gone. Yeah. I mean, I think our only out there was Spreading Seas on the Inkmoth Nexus, and that actually would have been pretty good because then we would have started building an army of elementals. So, not terrible. I mulligan to 6, opponent mulligan to 5, almost had the turn 2 win. We did what we could. I shipped away a Trickster, which is arguably incorrect. Again, though, against an unknown opponent, we shouldn't be afraid to keep sort of a plan A hand of just dealing a lot of damage. So lost game 1 to Infect. It's sort of something you expect to happen. Let's go ahead to game 2 and see how that one went. All right, back for game 2 against Infect. Let's take a quick look at the sideboard plan. Took out all those Master of Waves, took out all those Benthic Biomancers, took out all those relics. So 12 cards out, opens up a lot of room. We bring in all 4 Deprives, pretty much all our interaction. All 4 Deprives, all 3 Echoing Truths, both Dismembers, and then 3 Phyrexian Revokers, which if things get weird, Phyrexian Revoker can name Noble Hierarch to make it harder for them to cast their spells. Yeah, I think there might be another target in their deck for Phyrexian Revoker that I'm not thinking of right now. But, I mean, Noble Hierarch is the target that sort of comes to mind. Really, we're going to look to draw Dismembers and Echoing Truths. So here, I'm going to be on the play, and this is not the strongest hand, but it's got a bounce spell, it's got an AEther Vial, it's got card draw with Silvergill, and it's got these Revokers, which again are bodies that can potentially interact. We're kind of trying to do anything we can against Infect, which is just like all on, just full onslaught aggression. And also, keeping 7 is just kind of represents that you have a really strong hand. So if the opponent has a borderline hand, they might be more inclined to mulligan it. In this case, the opponent did, in fact, mulligan to 6, and then 5, and then 4, and then 3. I guess it doesn't show us in the replay that all of that happened. But once they had to mulligan below 4, they just scooped. So, yeah, I got there in game 2. Go Merfolk. Let's go and see how game 3 went. Okay, back to game 3. The opponent is going to be back on the play. Always scary against Infect. This 4-lander is an unfortunate mulligan. Opponent, I believe, kept 7. And yeah, we'll have to make do with this. In this case, what is the card that we're going to ship to the bottom? I believe it's the Silvergill, because we want, I guess, maximum interaction. It's sort of a tricky one. The Silvergill draws us cards, but I feel like if we're spending mana in this matchup, we want to be doing it, especially in the first few turns, in some kind of interactive way. So if the opponent kept a 1-lander with a Hierarch, we could potentially just slam Revoker and really slow them down. I don't want to make the point that Revoker is amazing in this matchup, but if we glance really quickly again at the sideboard, I believe it's better than these other choices. Master of Waves is way too slow. Benthic Biomancer is just never going to have the opportunity to adapt. So here's a Noble Hierarch, potential target for that Revoker, and I just have to pass the turn here. Opponent plays a Glistener Elf, cracks the Misty Rainforest, just gets the breeding pool out right away. And I'm going to choose to go for Dismember here. It's possible the opponent has like the Vines or Blossoming Defense, but it's going to make them spend it if they have it. So going for the Glistener Elf, and opponent just has a Spell Pierce, so good for them. Nothing I can do about that. And in this spot, I really just have to leave up Trickster. Trickster and Deprive. Running out Revoker once they have 2 lands is just a little bit low impact. You can see they're drawing plenty of lands in this this game. You can also see that pitching Silvergill is sort of reasonable because without AEther Vial, it's going to be really clunky to sort of time getting a Silvergill onto the board. So opponent attacks with the Glistener Elf. It gets an Exalted trigger. Still declare attackers. Instant Groundswell. And then another Groundswell, which is going to put the Glistener Elf to 10-10. At this point, I'm going to flash in the Trickster, target the Glistener Elf, and the opponent lets it resolve. So I think this opponent is pretty new on Infect. Like, no offense at all intended, but he should, with an empty board, certainly try to go to blocks. In which case, I probably still would have held the Trickster back, and then at which point the opponent then could go all in to try to win. And then once I flash in Trickster, I take away Infect, and then I have to take 10 regular damage. As things went, I didn't really want to take 10, so I just chump blocked. The opponent's down to 1 card in hand. And they cycle Horizon Canopy, so 2 cards in hand. Another Trickster means I'm just going to do the same thing. So I pass very quickly. I mentioned in the Urza matchup that knowing your lines is really important, because if you pass quickly, it can just represent like frustration. So I passed like I had nothing to do. Opponent attacks with Glistener Elf. And again, during Declare attacks, they go for mutagenic growth. So we let that resolve. This time, I'm going to flash in the Trickster, but not block it, because 4 regular non-infect damage is totally fine. So I'm going to go from 16 down to 12, and I finally got a creature on the board. Second Glistener Elf is slightly worrying, but with the opponent on 0 cards, we can actually start to be the beatdown. So I chose to play a Lord here, and I'm just going to attack with the Trickster. Next turn, if we play another Lord, we've got quite a formidable army. The opponent is just getting in with these 1/1s. I'm going to throw the Lord in front of one of them, see if the opponent has anything to do. Now, again, potentially not the best attack, because if they're attacking for 2, they could have just done it with a single Glistener Elf with Exalted, but I guess it makes sense with 2 attackers to get one of them around the edge. So I guess he had another Glistener Elf, so he felt like he could afford to throw them away. Definitely going to play another Lord here, definitely going to swing in with everybody I can. And just representing lethal at this point. And the opponent scooped, so I guess this last game was a good example of knowing when it's time to turn the corner, like when it's time to switch from defense to offense. And in this example, it was when the opponent got down to 0 cards. You don't need to be afraid of them top decking a single card. You know, when they're on 0, it's the most likely thing is that they're going to draw a land. And in this particular situation, playing out a Lord wasn't totally only pure aggression, because the Lord could act as a blocker. If the opponent got in and I just threw the Lord in front, could potentially eat a big pump spell. I think he had 2 attackers though, so even if he drew a scale up is sorcery, so if you play it on one of the Glistener Elves, very easy choice just to throw the Lord in front of the 6-power Infect creature. The other pump spells only really add like 4, so if I block one of the Glistener Elves, the other Glistener Elf attacks for 5, which is still, you know, only half of what they have to do. Then I follow up with another Lord, and I've got another blocker, and they have to top deck yet another powerful pump spell. So yeah, it was some weird mulligans in that game. The opponent just had to throw away game 2 because they couldn't find a playable hand. But I'm not complaining. Currently sitting at 4-0 in this league, having defeated, let's see if I can remember everything. I know that Hollow One was round 2, and then Urza was round 3, and Infect was round 4. Going all the way back to round 1, I don't think I can remember right now. I'll remember in the next video. So please leave your thoughts down below in the comment section. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Please check out my Patreon page if you'd like to support the channel and all of these videos that I upload. Also, pledging at the Patreon page will get you access to my sideboarding guide, which has a lot of thought and effort, a lot of detail for 40 different matchups in the modern format. And yeah, tune in for the next video where I'll be back for the 5th and final round of this Modern League, where I have a chance to go 5-0. So I will see you guys there. Bye.